Von Allen Sports.
When you take a quarterback down, when you sack a quarterback, do you say anything to him? Do you say, I'm coming back?
No, because, some quarterbacks feed off of that stuff.
I know that. Oh, you mean now?
Tom Brady,
hear that.
Tom Brady, if you start talking trash to him, he'll put 21 up on you fast. And so I just try to,
if you talk trash to Brady, he's got 21 points on there.
Yeah, he's going to put it up fast. So I just try to do my job, and I just try to get in and out.
We all hate the Patriots.
There's an institutional arrogance.
Tom Brady would be a bum in short.
I hate Tom Brady. No, that's not good enough.
Deflated
Lance Armstrong without the bicycle.
It's clear that over decades, the NFL has factored in more rules to protect players and open up the passing game. People automatically associate more rules with wussifying the league. Saying the NFL is now wussified is one of the most overused and tired points I ever hear regarding Brady. It's extremely short-sighted, sloppy, and lazy thinking to sum it up like that. If you're one of those guys that clings to the mantra that, back in my day, it was harder to play quarterback, congratulations! Every generation thinks their own era was better in every way. As we age, we start to think back to when we were young. We distort the actual events and the environment at the time. Even if it was not as good as we think, we somehow associate the past still with better times. Why? Because you're remembering when you were young. Most men remember being better at sports than they really were. We start our story of high school ball as a young up-and-comer with potential, but everyone doubted. And by the end of the story, we've morphed ourselves into the second coming of Joe Montana or Lawrence Taylor. And then to tie it up with a nice bow by saying, yep, I could have gone pro if I didn't get injured.
Yeah, you got my knee, got my ankle, got my foot, got my leg, got whatever.
And that's the go-to method of telling the story. Why? Because it means that them no longer being an athlete wasn't their fault. It was out of their control, not because they weren't good enough, and also because it can't be challenged and no one will ask you to prove it. And men do this exact thing when they tell stories of when they were young, watching their heroes play on TV. And not much is going to shake them from that thought. I admit, it's hard to not alter the details of the past. Our brain even does this when we don't ask for it. I remember being a kid watching the Houston Oilers lose a massive lead to the Bills in the playoffs. All these years, when I pictured watching the Oilers in my head, was a glorious display of perfection. The game in my memory was in perfect high definition. The passes were crisper, the catches were better, the running backs ran like magical unicorns, the kickers never missed, and the head coaches were manly men, always angry and expecting the best out of the players. Hell, even the commentators in my head were the best commentators of all time. So by the time I tell that story about watching the Buffalo Bills comeback, I had pulled up memories of it that aren't really true or accurate for the most part. It just seemed like it was that glorious. It seemed it was that perfect. But then I watched a documentary about the early 90s Oilers, and I was in shock. The broadcast was terrible. Grainy, wavy, bad coloring. The commentators sounded like they were doing funeral rites, not calling a game. Just everything about the game was different, significantly different. And it's not like I didn't know this already. I did, but it didn't matter. Whenever I reminisced, I defaulted back to the NFL was perfect, clean, polished, without scandals or cheating or anything else that could have tainted the NFL back then. But still, even with how spoiled we are today in viewing games, our memory makes the past seem pure and perfect.
You got it.
Now, regarding Brady and his career, people conveniently forget that Tom has played in two different eras. When he first came into the league, the NFL was actually getting more violent than it was in the 90s. This was known as the headhunting era. Players started using their entire bodies as projectiles, causing massive collisions that hurt not only their targets, but themselves, sometimes even fellow teammates. Because launching your body like a missile, you lose control the moment you leave your feet. The NFL was plagued by defenders wanting to make highlight reels on ESPN's segment, Jacked Up! I won't lie, I loved that segment. It was exciting and many times hilarious. And you're lying if you say you haven't laughed when seeing a player you don't like get jacked up on that show.
And the guys helping him off are saying to him, Terrence, you got jacked up!
But that was the era. That was what defense turned into. Less form tackles, more body missiles. Brady got his job from a big hit to Bledsoe while he was running out of bounds. That same exact play happened to Jared Goff in the Super Bowl, and it wasn't even flagged. If the quarterback leaves the pocket, the refs aren't going to be as protective of you unless you slide. There's a very distinct reason why the NFL has rules for the pocket, because they expect the quarterback to not leave it. They expect the quarterback to be good enough to make the throws he needs to make. You start running around like a chicken with your head cut off, don't be surprised if you get lit up and there's no flag. Several times I have seen refs pick up the flag after throwing it because they realized the quarterback was running, which makes him vulnerable to any hit that a running back would be. You stay in the pocket as much as possible. The pocket has more or less been a safe zone for the quarterback for an extremely long time. It's not some new invention. Additionally, many of you like to think because a flag is thrown, that wussifies the league. I didn't realize a flag on the field reversed the damage already done. The hit is a hit, regardless. If it's flagged, okay, a few yards, or at worst, a fine, which to these guys is like a speeding ticket. It's worth it to these guys to get a big hit on a quarterback and risk the penalty or fine.
Oh my goodness!
That's why they constantly do it. If you're a linebacker and you go through the season laying guys out, but you get flagged and fined for it, no one's going to remember the penalty yards. The league and its fans are going to remember you as a big hitter and a guy to be feared. And what does that translate to? Money. Guys can literally change their career fortunes by doing things like this. It's a mental thing, and these guys will take the risk to achieve the desired end result. Now, already into the 80s and early 90s, cleaner tackles and hits on quarterbacks were emphasized. Guys were using less brute strength and instead mixed in skill and form to what they were doing. Remember, a clean tackle is beneficial to the guy doing it as well. Better form means less chance of injury for themselves. Those vicious hits on quarterbacks back in the 70s weren't free. Those came with a price. Don't think for 1 second that those hits did not hurt while giving them. Plus, most guys didn't want to be the guy who ends someone's career just for a sack. There is some decency in there as well. But I have a great example of skill, form, and strength all came together into one great hit on the quarterback. Keith McCant's hit on Dan Marino. And thank you to Keith for giving us this clip. Really appreciate it. Marino was very difficult to sack because he always had a way out. He was just too fast with his arm. Watch this get off by McCants. He timed this perfectly. He had an unimpeded shot on Marino. Dan was completely vulnerable. At this point, McCants could have done anything. He could have gone helmet to helmet. He could have gone for his knees, but no. Surely putting the great Dan Marino out of the game and possibly the season is advantageous to your team, right? But what did Keith opt for? A clean hit. That's how it's done. You can see Marino's face. Now, I don't know what he's saying to Keith, and I probably should ask him, but I get the feeling Dan is thinking,
hey, where did you come from, man?
Now, this is just an example of even back then, it wasn't prison yard rules out there, people. The defenders still had accountability for what they did. And definitely class.
Check this out.
I'm pretty sure what's happening to Peyton here would be considered sexual assault anywhere outside of a football stadium. What's this? Kill the head and the body will die? Remember this guy? Despite what the media and the NFL will have you to believe, Greg Williams wasn't some lone nut job coach who just had a weird fetish with ending players' careers. The NFL just wanted to make an example out of him. The truth is the NFL has always been littered with Greg Williams types. That's just football, people. This wasn't happening during some obscure era. This happened right in the middle of Brady's career. But a lot of you think that this is football now.
Open, get open. Get your head out of your ass. You suck.
I bet you Eli Manning doesn't think this is funny. And this was just preseason. Eli, he's never missed a game to injury. Remember in Super Bowl 50 when everyone made fun of Cam because he didn't go into the scrum for the fumbled ball? Yeah, his toughness was brought into question. His courage and desire to win was also questioned from that one play. Here is that same thing with Brady when he loses the ball. But look, no hesitation whatsoever. He went for it. But let me guess, no props, right? Okay, well let's ask Von Miller what he thinks about Tom. This is Von Miller talking about that brutal hit Brady took from Elvis Dumervil. If you're a Patriots or a Broncos fan, I'm certain you remember this. But for the rest of you, watch this. And now we have DeMarcus Ware talking about Brady. Now I love Ware's story, especially because he's like, man, right at me and yells, Ware, Ware, Ware. Damn it, Tom. Man, dang it. DeMarcus continued, we sacked Tom 4 times and hit him 20 times. 20 freaking times. Every time we hit him, he got back up. We hit Tom more times than any quarterback in a game that season, and he still had his team a 2-point conversion away from tie-in. Can he take a hit? Like 20 of them.
Made too many compromises already. Too many retreats. They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
Okay, well if this testimony from DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller doesn't sell you that Brady is tough and could survive back in the 80s, then this is what you are.
You're just a hater, and shame on you.
Von Allen Sports.